You're listening to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will introduce you to a wealth of interesting, fascinating individuals from all walks of life who will share their stories, how they've overcome challenges, and you will find out their top tips for success. Through this podcast, you can gain tips to grow and change your life and the way you see the world, and help you to nurture your zest. Hello and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I've got a really special episode for you today because I'm joined by the wonderful Peter George Bell, who is also a podcaster. So we're going to have a great chat about all of the wonderful hats he wears and all the things he gets up to, but also just about podcasting in general and all sorts of other parts of our creative journeys. So thanks for tuning in. Great to see you, Peter.
Yeah, great to see you. And talking about hats, I love your hat.
Thank you. It's kind of become a thing, you know. I love it. It's a big part of the brand, and I feel like it's, you know, we had a guest this morning talking about the armor he wears, his suits when he does things. But for me, the hat has become my armor when I'm recording or speaking or presenting. It's nice to have something to help.
Yeah, it's good. It suits you.
Yeah. So I want to ask so many things about you. I like that you've got headphones on now. If I was smart, I could have done the same. It just immediately shows like that you may be interested in music or creativity or podcasting or something. So I like that you've done that.
Yeah, I guess like anybody that knows me knows that these are basically attached to me at like 24/7 because it's for me, like I'm massively into music, podcasts. I'm always listening to audiobooks. I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to books and learning, and like it's comfortable, right? So it's like, you know, it's similar to what your previous guest was talking about armor. Like for me, like it's kind of, I feel in a safer environment almost if they're with me. So yeah, kind of always, I've got a bit more of a relaxed feel to how I dress, but like these have to be with me all the time. I don't know if it's some form of thing in the background that I need to work through, but who knows?
I think it's something, sometimes it's a sensory thing. I love to be able to just put my headphones on and drown out everything that's going on around me. If I'm feeling overwhelmed or just sometimes just that extra energy that you get when you have music. So yeah, I just wanted to, gosh, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I love your shoes. I love your socks. They rock.
Thanks very much.
But I also just noticed that you're wearing a Huel t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I have a Huel shake here because I thought it was funny because are you a fan of Stephen Bartlett?
So yeah, I like his podcast. I think it's good. And in respect to Huel, I thought like, you know, naturally when you watch Stephen's show, I thought, well, I'll give it a try because I wanted to see if it made an impact. So I've been kind of doing it for like about 30 days and yeah, I quite like it. But to be fair, it's a nice product, and they also send you a nice t-shirt. I like the fit. So yeah, it's not necessarily that I'm sponsored by Huel, more so that I just like the fit of the t-shirt, but yeah, it's good. It's a nice product.
Well, I think if anyone from Huel watches this, it's two podcasters. Yeah, we know podcasts don't always make money. So do support us and sponsor us. You know, it's nice that all the big podcasters are sponsored, but I think sometimes more for indie podcasters would be great. Speaking of Huel though, I am doing the same. So I'm having probably like 1 or 2 a day just to take away some of the meals because I have ADHD, I forget to eat a lot. Yeah. And I don't mean to. It's just I just get like, I don't know, I just get so hyper-focused on things and I forget. And before you know it, it's like 8 o'clock at night and it's the hungry bear comes out and I just start eating everything, you know? In. So I love Huel because it's really good to get vitamins in. So that's one of the reasons I like it. And it's so like, I don't have to make it. I just have it ready. So
yeah, exactly. Well, we've got a toddler and twins on the way, 2 Labradors, and I've got about 3 or 4 different businesses. So
holy moly, you've got a busy house.
We're literally busy all the time. It's good for me. Like I'm not religious with it. I don't do it like all the time, but just when I'm like I need something, it's there. So it's good.
Yeah, well, that's an exciting. So you've got twins on the way, a toddler, and 2 Labradors, did you say?
Yeah, exactly.
And Labradors need lots of time and affection and walks and
which is good about like living here because we've got like the beach is just so close by and it's really nice. So yeah, it's a nice life. It's a bit of a contrast for what I used to be like.
So what was life like for you before?
Yeah, so like, let's start with the journey, right? So back in kind of my early part of career, I wasn't happy. I was like working at a company for a little bit of time. I'd worked for the police, then I went to work for a civil engineering company, and it got to the point where I was just like, is this it? And I was like, no, I've got to do more. Like, there's got to be something. So I did like the traditional thing of, save up some money, go traveling. And I went to work in South Africa on a wildlife game reserve with lions to start with, which was good. Then I went over to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji. Then I was like, I'm not ready to come back. Went over to America, came down to South America, went to Galapagos and the Amazon for a bit. So I spent about like 1.5, 2 years traveling. Did it by myself because I was wanting to figure out like who I really wanted to be and what I wanted to become. It was a great experience because like the cool thing is about traveling is kind of you see so many different cultures and different ways of living, and then you reflect upon your own kind of journey and you think, well, like I could do more. So I came back, I did a master's down in Oxford and finished that. And I was like, okay, now what's next? So I'm always like chasing. I want to kind of see what I could become. So I went over to work in Switzerland for Nestle for a bit. And then I got offered an amazing job at EA. So I went to work for EA, and kind of similar to Nestle, I was just sent everywhere, which way and when. So I was always on flights, always in hotel rooms, always in new countries. But then there was a moment in time where it was just like, nah, the brakes just hit. And I had a really like dark period of time in my life whereby I was very suicidal. I struggled with basically just normal living. Like getting out of bed was nigh on impossible. Like you jump in a shower and you think you're in there for like 5 minutes, you're in there for like a long period of time. It had gone cold. I just wasn't present. I wasn't there anymore. My mind had like locked out. So kind of that was good for me in the long term because whilst I did go down like a really dark route for a number of years, it took me like a lot of therapy and a lot of like meds and support to get me out of that. Like it ultimately allowed me to pivot more towards happiness and more towards like being courageous about what I want to do in my life and what I want my life to be about, not really like what others expect of me. So in respect to that, I kind of I started writing kids' books. I got 2 kids' books published, more so because I thought there was good stories to be shared. One was about a character called Bob, which was kind of like my dad's journey with a touch of my experiences of that darkness at that time. And then the next one I wrote at the early part of the pandemic because I was seeing so many people like pass away and so many loved ones like dying off. And I just thought, well, this is crazy. Nobody's talking about like grief and loss. So I wrote a second book called Luna and the Lighthouse because I was really keen to articulate that story between light and darkness and how when people do pass, they're not all always gone. They're still there in our hearts. So that story was kind of cool to write, and it's kind of got a lot of good traction. But then I was like, okay, what's next? So I thought, well, at the time, not everybody was having an opportunity to articulate their own stories and their own journeys, and their own difficulties that they're experiencing. So I went down the route of podcasting, and we had our first episode was called You, Me and COVID. And I spoke to people from the front line and beyond and just let them articulate their story, what it's been like. And it got some amazing feedback, and it set me on a pathway towards podcasting and purpose. And I guess like purpose made is quite central to what I do now because kind of it's looking more towards the longer term, and not necessarily just sustainability, but actually from a personal perspective, you the ability to help people grow, develop, nurture that growth, and make sure that they have a platform to be the best versions of themselves. So what we do is we from a podcast perspective, it's about sharing people's journeys. So we've worked with a lot of amazing people, had some amazing guests on, and built a really nice community. And then from the Purpose Made side, we go into businesses to help businesses realize what their purpose is, what they stand for and believe in, and help articulate those messages to their communities, both internally and externally, to ultimately create momentum forward to create lasting impact.
I mean, wow, what a journey you've been on, but also I want to come back to a few bits, particularly your journey with darkness, as you called it. But I did want to say just briefly about the Purpose Made podcast. You know, it sounds like you're building a tremendous community, and it's amazing the power of podcasting to connect people, and the people who listen from all walks of life, from all over the world. I mean, I don't know about you, but the stats and the demographics just shock me sometimes.
It's crazy. We've got so I'm still doing, I'm a big admirer of your studio. I'm still doing it from our kitchen table or dining room table, sometimes up in our office. But yeah, somehow we've managed to create an audience of 20K in about 64 countries, 600 and some cities. And it just keeps on growing. And we're getting some great partners. There's Seven Hills help source some amazing guests for us down in London. We've got Unit 9 that do a lot of support as well. It's about, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know, we're just kind of trying to make these small gradual steps forward to create a community of empowered people to share their stories. And I'm a big advocate of partnerships. So progressive partnerships for change. And yeah, I guess it's cool. We don't know what's next, right? But we'll keep on along that journey. And as long as it's making us happy, and as long as we're providing people value and also providing some impact, then yeah, I will continue to do it.
I think that's a really powerful thing that you've just said there, especially around growth. So obviously, as we're two podcasters, it makes sense to talk about the realities of actually having a podcast. It's a lot of work. You create your content, and then you've got to share it online, and you've got to make sure you keep on top of your social accounts, and you find great guests. And one of the things I'm guilty of is creating lots of content and then not sharing it or using it. So what I tend to do is batch record, and that helps me a lot, because then I've got a stack of stuff that I can plan and deliver. And I think one thing that I am very conscious of is I love the studio I'm in, Flamingo Heights, and it's something very new, and it's something I never expected. And that was really because there was I noticed that there was an appetite to work with me and create podcasts from corporate clients, and I didn't have a space to hire. So when I ran TEDx Newcastle University as executive producer of that, I looked around at different opportunities, different places that I could hire to film the videos, because we were during COVID, we couldn't do it live. So we pre-recorded the videos, and we ended up hiring Proto, which is a fabulous place in Gateshead. But what I did find is, looking around at other studios, there were a lot that weren't very customizable. They didn't have a great blank space to work with. And often they were smelly or just run down. And so I wanted to have a place that people could kind of come and just enjoy.
Be comfortable, right?
Yeah, but also that is completely, it's wacky, but that you can actually take everything away and just have a blank shell if you wanted to. And so that is kind of part of having a studio. But what I would say, though, is it's massively affected my reach, because there is something about putting out content consistently week after week, or even every second week, or using your same episode and breaking it down into blogs and content and repurposing that so much. I think when you are doing it from home and recording remotely, it's fantastic, because you can be reaching people all over the world. Your networks are constantly growing. Yeah. But also the other thing around that is your costs are a lot less, and you're having to do less client-focused work to kind of bring in the income to pay for everything else. So I'm really inspired by your growth and your traction as how many people you're reaching. That's tremendous. And for anyone who's listening who wants to start a podcast, one of the questions I'm getting in training a lot is, what kind of setup do I need? What kind of kit do I need? And I just want them to feel really encouraged and inspired by your story.
Do you want me to tell you a story about how I started?
Yes, please do.
So in respect to podcasting, the setup just needs to be basic. It's just about starting, right? The thing that, and it's kind of akin to a lot of people in life at this present point in time. People are restricted by fear fear of the unknown. And podcasting is like a large unknown to a lot of people at this point in time. So it's just about making those small steps forward. So I literally just went on Amazon. I bought like a mic to plug into the side of my laptop. I still use it today. I know I need to upgrade, but it's just where we are at this point in time. I remember, so we've got a producer called Max, who's an amazing guy. He's based down in Manchester. And I remember the journey, actually. I was driving the dogs to the beach. I was listening to probably LBC or something like that about the early parts of the pandemic. And I'm like, I need to find somebody to produce an episode and give it a go. So I contacted Max, and yeah, like it's just building out a team. Like you don't need to have, everything doesn't need to be perfect from day one. Like it's the beauty of the journey. Like if your aim is to get to a said destination, you can become obsessive about that destination, and you miss the whole joy of the journey. So I think, start small to grow big is a very simple thing to do. And like that's the essence of anything really, podcasting or business or self-development. Like if you look at, I remember we recorded an episode a while back with an amazing lady called Dr. Grace Lorden. She brought out this book called Think Big. It's called Think Big. And there was a bit in that called Me Plus, and that really resonated with me because it's like you can't really change anybody else before you can change yourself. So who are you now? Who do you want to become? And what are you doing to get to that point in time, to get to that person? And kind of akin to like the whole Matthew McConaughey speech he did a while ago about like always chasing. Like I'm 39 right now. So when I get to 45, I'm chasing that guy. I want to see what he becomes. And when I get to 45, I won't stop there. I want to chase to see what the 50-year-old me is like. Because I want to like look back and not like what people see. If you look at the regrets of the dying, for example, one of their biggest regrets, I think it's number one, is the fact that they didn't have the courage to live the life that they wanted to live. And instead they lived the life that others perceived they should be living, something along those lines. And I think, yeah, it's about courage. It's about just taking the time to embrace the unknown, lean into challenge, and just see what you can become. Like, just push yourself. That's the biggest thing. Because when you do that, you galvanize people around you. You become this kind of, I'm not positive all the time. I do have my ups and downs, but you just become a better version of yourself, and that aura can help others. And if you are trying to do things for the benefit of others rather than the benefit of self, like in respect of value, then anything is possible. You turn the impossible into possible, and it starts by small incremental actions forward. So I think what I'd like to say to people is just like, if there's something in your head at this point in time that you really want to do and achieve, like, first of all, what's stopping you? And secondly, like, what's the worst can happen? Because you'll look back at that time, if you've tried something, it's kind of like what people look at in respect to failure, right? A lot of people think, I failed at this. Or I spoke to somebody the other day and they were like, she's an amazing woman. She had a business by 21, it failed. But like the lessons that you learn from failure are crucial. It's about ultimately what you can take from that reflection and taking those lessons forward into your present and future life to make sure that you are moving forward rather than kind of stagnating, really.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely. And also that idea of failing fast. So giving yourself the permission to fail, to make mistakes, definitely. But to just try things. And, as someone who's very interested in entrepreneurship, but also has quite an academic background, I love to read and learn as well. But I love to read entrepreneurial books. And a lot of them talk about just getting to market, just do your...
Just doing, right? It's like the Nike thing, just do. Just
absolutely.
Do it.
I mean, so if I look back and reflect on certain things, having a studio was not in my wildest dreams, but if it was, and it was in my dissertation that I did my entrepreneurial business plan, it was a 5-year goal. It was not something I actualized within a year or so of graduating from my MBA. So I'm really, really grateful for that. But I think that's why goal setting's really important as well. And so hearing how you're chasing that guy who's 45 or chasing that next guy and never wanting to stop learning is really powerful. But I want to come back to what you were saying earlier. So you just said there about some of the regrets of the dying, and I have heard that quote too, about, people living a life that other people wanted for them. That's something I resonate with so much at times I've been at in the past, but also times now. I'm 34 tomorrow.
Happy birthday in
Thank you. Thanks. But I'm very conscious, that I'm getting older and I'm not a mom yet. And it's something I've always wanted, but just hasn't happened yet for various reasons. And I just think that there's more to me than just being a mom, as in that's the only thing I've ever wanted since I was 2 years old, is to be a mom. And so it's really like something I'm reflecting on then, with my birthday coming up, as I do every year. But I think that concept of just being a mom, moms are amazing. Moms work their butts off, and like there is no just in anything, whatever job you're doing, whatever activity you're doing. So for me, that was always like just the most wonderful thing to aim for. But at school, I was bullied when I moved to the UK at 14, and they said to me at school, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a mom and a good wife. I just got laughed at so much. So it was like, well, that's not even an aim. That's not even a goal, So I guess I've moved so far away from that. So that whole concept of the dreams that we have for ourselves that don't always, happen, but also the life that we might live for others. And I wanted to ask you about that, about your reflections on, you mentioned what you called, being in a dark space, something I like to call, I often talk about falling down the rabbit hole. I'm a big fan of Alice in Wonderland and Lewis Carroll, but, I think that there are many colors. There's a kaleidoscope, as we know, of colors. And the shadows, dark and light, are what teach you so much about yourself. So yes, there is dark. Yes, there is light. There's many colors in between, but it's that flexibility of those colors. It's those nuances that are just so beautiful in the journey. I mean, do you ever look back at some of those darkest times and just think, wow, like, do you feel self-compassion now looking back? What do you think looking at it?
I think there's a couple of things. Like, if you look, the first thing I'd like to say is when you do look back, like, look back to a point, but also realize that there's a time that you need to let go. But to talk about the darkness first before I talk about letting go, I do look back, because like back in the kind of latter part of 2018, I was extremely suicidal. That tried to, and my wife picked up on this quite quickly. Like I had it planned in my head. I'm going upstairs in the rafters. I'm going to hang myself. That was me gone, because I felt that I wasn't like, I wanted all that pain to go away. I just wanted all that, like, you just get overwhelmed by it to the point of like, you become very frantic. And I had like extreme anxiety, extreme like clinical depression, and it was horrendous. But like, that was, when I look back now to that guy, like I'm fairly comfortable. I'm comfortable with it, because like, I think it's important to realize, I've had a lot of friends that have like died through suicide, right? Some have died recently, some have died a little while ago. And firstly, I've got a lot of empathy to people that go through that difficulty. And when people actually do take their lives, it's like, people need to understand that it wasn't a selfish act. They're doing it because, like, in your head at the time, it's like, I want to do this because you guys don't deserve like to have this rubbish anymore. I'm going. So there's a lot of like empathy for others in that period of time. But as well, like, when you do get through that period of darkness and you start to see the light, like, I think you have to let go, right? You have to get to a point kind of akin to that suit of armor that your previous guest was talking about. You're walking around with this armor, and the armor is built on the weight of expectations of the past. You need to take that off. You need to let go of the past in order to live in the present and move towards your future. You'll be a lot lighter doing that process, and you're more at ease with yourself. But you do need to go through that reflection. You do need to question your why, akin to Simon Sinek, start with the why. You need to look at like what you were then, and not let that person like rule your present and future, but ultimately be comfortable with the decisions that you may have made in the past, or the things that may have taken place in the past, and not let them affect your present and future. Because like we change every day, right? We wake up as and waking up is a blessing. You wake up in a new opportunity to go forward in your life. but a lot of people like wake up with regret, they wake up with anger, they wake up with frustration, they hate their job, there's things going on in their lives, but they're not doing anything about it. So you need the ability to kind of change yourself before you can help and change others. Like when you talked earlier about when you came over to this country and you were bullied, like it's horrendous being bullied. I'm sure it is, but you need to also let go of some of these things, because like when you interact and meet new people for the first time, you should be doing it from a period of curiosity, of interest, of the desire to learn from other people. And if you are taking that weight of expectation of the past with you, that what if this person doesn't like me? What if I say the wrong thing? Or like I'm in a crowd of people, I feel uncomfortable about that. Like you need to kind of be comfortable with the uncomfortable. You need to like realize that it is nothing, that thought in your head that can lead to more darkness, that can lead to like akin to like the black dog, just grows and grows and grows if you let it, like if you let those perpetual loops like continue to go around, they grow, right? So there's no you need to just be comfortable in the ability to step back and say, okay, that's a thought, that's not reality. And your reality is that like you are doing amazing things. You've got an amazing podcast, you're doing wonderful stuff. And your future is yours, right? The future is what you want it to be. So, like just be more aware that what has led people's journey to a point in time doesn't have to continue to lead to their future destination. And I also think there's one thing that I'd like to pivot back to, and that's like you talked about like posting content. So at this point in time, we've got people desperately trying to find their voice. If you look on any platform, be that TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever social media platform it is, you've got people trying to find their voice. And the cool thing is they're trying to find their voice. So like when you look in the comments and you see somebody like saying something negative, like you don't need to be aware, you don't need to pay too much attention to that. It's ultimately like the time to find our voice, because we're at that kind of challenge where if it's the creator versus consumption ratio, and we need to be creating more content, we need to be doing more stuff than consuming. Like we can spend a day on our phones and we look up and it's like 7 o'clock at night and we've wasted our entire day. Like you need to be aware of the ratio. So like if you reflect on your own life at this present point in time and think that your ratio is like say 70% consumption, 30% creation, like you are not going to be happy, because you're comparing yourself to others, and people only ever post positive shit on the internet. They don't post realities. Like we've got a toddler, we've got dogs, we've got babies on the way. Like the reality is tough, right? But if you post that, then like who gravitates towards that? So it's about being real. It's about being authentic and realizing that, like, what is your voice? What is your why? Who are you trying to articulate with? What tribes are you trying to create? And like when you realize that, like you end up just naturally creating better stuff. So like whilst I don't post every day on LinkedIn, and I see people that do, and I like good luck to them, or I don't post every day on like various different social media platforms, like I'm just more attuned to the fact that I want to create more stuff. So I take a lot more time in the background where I'm seemingly online doing nothing, but in the background I'm recording a shit ton of podcasts, or I'm meeting amazing people, or I'm trying to create new ventures, and when things happen and I have the time, yeah, I'll post something. But like just be aware that everybody's going through the same struggles, and if we're a bit more honest with people, I think the world that we live in now wouldn't be so chaotic, because it is quite chaotic, right?
Big time, yeah. It can be a very scary place, and looking at the news and looking at what's going on there and looking at society and the way it's shifting and changing. So you talked about, it's great that people are trying to find their voice in social media and online, but sometimes what happens with that is, and I see this on LinkedIn all the time, this isn't Facebook, why are you sharing that here, or those kind of content. And I'm often reading posts and I'm thinking, what is the point of this post that someone's put? I just don't get it.
It's just them finding the voice, right?
Exactly. And I love that way of looking at it. It's a really I think it's a unique perspective that I haven't heard before, actually, that I really like. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, like, and judgment, like, when has judgment been any use to anybody? So like, you may not immediately resonate to what somebody's posting, but that's fine. Just scroll past it and read something else. Or like, if you realize that it's stuff that you don't resonate with, then get off that platform and go and do something else. Like, I think at this point in time, I'd love to talk about society a little bit more, because like, I'm highly political, and I do bits in politics, and I kind of, I know what's going on. And if you look at, we are in a time whereby, without going into the depths of everything, I'll just keep holistic and akin to Moses Naim. He's brought out this book called The Revenge of Power. So we're in a big power struggle. There's a old version of the world that wants to return to the norm, per se, and then there's this new creator economy that's coming through that is literally going to be bursting at the seams to create some amazing stuff, amazing businesses, and like build out a better version of the world that we see today and actually address the large global problems. That's kind of why, akin to Simon Sinek, that's why I created Purpose Made, because like, I realized when the pandemic hit that the world that we were living in wasn't serving people correctly. So I wanted to create a business that helped businesses realize how to better connect with people, how to better create movements forward to allow for change and action to really take place. So if you look at that, there's amazing businesses that are doing amazing stuff at the moment that you maybe aren't getting the light, because we're seeing a lot of populism, we're seeing a lot of polarization, and we're seeing a lot of post-truth. So if you haven't read Moses Naim's book, The Revenge of Power, there's one to definitely read. It's a really interesting one. And I just think that there's a lot of struggles. Like, the world that we live in 5 years' time is going to be hugely different to what we think it is. And I think we're only really going to get to that place if we're a lot more open and embracive and empathetic and transparent to what we're trying to achieve and why. So like, that's why I always say to people, start with why, but equally, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So if you don't have a strong why, if you don't have strong foundations to a business, to what you're trying to achieve, like, what value are you trying to offer? Like, that's the ultimate thing. So when people look and reflect on their own lives, or they may be listening to this and reflecting on what their business is, like, you have to reflect. You have to understand what you're trying to achieve, and it isn't profit. Profit is a byproduct of purpose. Like, you have to do more. You have to connect with society. You have to create movements for change. You have to stand for something and believe in what you stand for. And then when you do that, change becomes something that isn't to be feared, it's to be embraced. And like, the seas of change are upon us at this point in time. So like, be proactive to change rather than reactive to it, because never, ever in the history of change, anything that's been reacted to has been sustainable. Proactive change is always the way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can hear your passion in sharing that. I want to ask you about, you've mentioned the dark and depression and some of the rough times you've had. So for someone listening, or, when you talk about your why, how do you find your why when you don't want to be here, when you're having a really dark time and you don't want to be around? How can someone kind of get through all that stuff to even help themselves?
Just pause. Like, stop, like, realize that you have to anchor yourself in the present. And what I, like, in my period of darkness and the stuff that was kind of driving me towards suicide was a multitude of factors. And because of that, the world around me was extremely fast and I just felt overwhelmed. You were, as I said before, about like carrying the weight of previous decisions and previous things that may have happened. That was with me as well. So like, if you anchor yourself in the present, if you kind of just stop, turn everything off, breathe, like, just start almost like ground zero again. That's what I had to do. Like, when I was starting to get better, it's because I was like going out for dog walks again. And that was a big win for me, because like, to get me out of the house at that point in time was huge. So to do basic things again, that's what ultimately led me towards like this why that I'm going towards at the moment. You just need to take the time to stop and like listen to the world around you, listen to yourself, breathe, slow your breathing. Like meditation's massive for me now. Like I love the work of like Wim Hof that everybody's now seeing because he's got a lot of stuff on TV, but like that ability to just stop, calm your breathing down, like if you do these small incremental steps forward and slow the pace, then like you can get back to a place that you're able to function again. Because I wasn't functioning at that time. Like, as I said, like getting out of bed was nigh and impossible. And when I did get out of bed, like getting in a shower, like that person wasn't even here. It's really weird because like I look at who, and I always say who he was because I've changed, but that person was just a shadow of who I was. And like it's really hard to describe to somebody. And I know that a lot of people are going through periods of despair at this point in time. But I guess the antidote always to despair is hope. And if you feel hopeless, you just need to take the time to pause and realize that the world that you're perceiving in your head isn't the world that's around you. So kind of take the time, slow everything down, concentrate on your breathing, and like surround yourself with people that are authentic and like are there for you. Because when people are there for you, when you get better, you'll be there for them. And that's the thing. When we create a care economy then, where people really take care for each other. And when you do that, like the larger, more impactful change can take place.
Yeah, I love those tips. Just taking it all in and thinking about all the things you've said.
Crying, then. I'm not going to lie.
I have a habit of making people cry, not always on the show, but certainly I'm working with a couple of people at the moment, and it's amazing how much we can carry in our bodies, and then it just comes out, and when I recently did my neuro-linguistic programming NLP stuff, and they actually don't see crying as a big deal. It's just energy. It's just energy leaking from your eyes. It's not a big deal. But I think it's so funny how we hold on to emotions for so long and how they can keep us stuck, if we let them. And so what you said earlier about pressing pause and going, hang on, look at my life. It's such a well-utilized tool, but I still absolutely love it. It's called the Wheel of Life. Yeah. And just actually taking a perspective of, zooming out and going, okay, where am I at with spirituality? Not necessarily religion, but my faith, my hope, what I believe in, my value system. Where am I at with work? Where am I at with money and all these different elements, family, friends? One of my coaching clients that I've been working with we did that the other day, and he hadn't done it before, but he has been feeling really down and wanting and lonely. And when we looked at his wheel of life, he was spending 42% of his time working, and like all of his other time was spent just working out. So there was not really much space for fun and friendships and other things. But that was the coping strategy for now. But it's like, well, what can we do about that now going forward? So it's like, whatever situation we're in today, there are huge external factors like a war going on, food shortages, poverty, rising fuel crises, all these big challenges. We're going through this pandemic. There's a lot of stuff in the news to worry about, but what can we do in our day-to-day? And I think what you're saying there about, watching your nutrition, going for walks, just remembering to breathe, making time for your family. These are all little things that make such a big difference. But what you said that I love is that every step makes a difference. So it's those small incremental changes, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one thing I haven't mentioned, and this is definitely something I normally talk about when I talk about mental health, is you have to start getting to a point where you can build out your own toolkit. So things that work for you. And in my toolkit is dog walks. It used to be gym until our gym closed, but like we've got a Peloton now, so that's quite good. Wow. And then we have like time with family, switching off your mobile phone. like there's a guy called Robbie Thompson that's an amazing PT in this area. And like, if you don't follow him on Instagram, you should. He's always like saying some good stuff. And yeah, like just turn off your mobile phone on a weekend and just being present in the moment. Like that's a big thing. I don't do it every weekend, but when I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed, it's one of the first things that I'll do. I just shut things down. But yeah, just build out your toolkit, because each and everybody's own toolkit is authentic and unique to them. Some things that work for me may not work for you, but the realization that we are going through periods of crisis at this moment in time, that to stop you from feeling overwhelmed and like without power, you have to possess and retain that power. So what can you have within yourself, within your own toolkit, that's going to work for you, and be religious to that. Like make it repetitive in your day to day. Like when you wake up, like go through these daily routines. Like I know that a lot of people profess about daily routines, but like it doesn't have to be something that you post on the internet to say, this is my daily routine, this is what I'm going through. Like just understand what works for you. And when you do that, you quickly like realize that by keeping yourself occupied with stuff that's of value to you and to others, there's no room for that kind of black dog to reappear. And that, as well as chasing, like I mentioned a lot about chasing, a lot of what I do is to keep that at bay. Because the thing is, with mental health, it's not like you break a leg and all of a sudden it's gone. Some days you wake up and you're absolutely crap, and other days you wake up, you're absolutely fine. So it's the ability to manage your life going forward through a number of activities and like elements of repetition and kind of structure that allows you to progress forward and be the best version that you could be, akin to Grace Lord, and be your me plus, rather than be that guy that was like planning to go up in the rafters and hang himself. Like that's crazy. Like looking back, it's crazy. So yeah, just figure out what your toolkit is. And if you ever struggle, like realize that when you are open, like towards chatting to people about things that in the past might have been fearful to you, if you're more open to kind of collaborating with people, to talking with people, to being authentic, transparent who you really are, then you connect with you connect with people more easily, because they're going through similar things to you and they resonate to those challenges. And authenticity is the best place for partnerships, because like you're not going into a relationship, a partnership through the pursuit of profit. You're going in for it because you've been there, done it. They resonate with what you're saying. You do the same. And then when it comes to a working perspective, you're like, yeah, I'd like to work with you. Let's figure out a way. And at no time in anything that I do I ever think about money. Like I know money comes. It always does. If you do good work, money always comes. So why do people have money as the sole purpose of what they want to achieve? Like money's a byproduct of success, of growth, development. And when you're able to change yourself, you can change your circumstances too.
Yes, absolutely. It's something I agree with. However, I've learned that we all have different values and value systems and ways of seeing the world. And sometimes that concept of a life and around things besides money, that concept of money will come, it's not something everyone can grasp. So I love how you've shared that. And I think it's true. It does always come. There is a wealth of money out there to be made, and people to support and collaborate with and help. But it is something that I reflect on money a lot, actually. It's been a huge part of my journey, and there's been so much changes and advancement there for me personally that I'm so happy about. So for instance, valuing your time as a creative is something I always struggled with in the past. Seeing the value you bring to people, the expertise, all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, there's just such an amazing feeling you get from giving and from giving back and volunteering and supporting and charity work and all these types of things that for me, it's something I've had to realize that sometimes money is important, actually, you know, in terms of paying the bills or certain things. So it's a journey I'm still on, I would say. But I like what you said there. Yeah. So I'm conscious of the time. I did want to ask you a very quick question, which is my favorite. So I love that we're both playing with crystals, by the way.
Gave me one of these. We've said before that I like, when I'm doing podcasts, I always have a kid's toy in my hand. But
But it's nice to have something that you can touch. I like, fidgeting. So it gives me a lot of peace, and I've got sodalite in a heart, which is great for communication. And I think you've got aventurine, which is good for luck, which is great, and money, which we were just talking about. So hope you bring some prosperity. What I was going to ask is, what is your number one word to nurture your zest?
I think time is key, because the ability to take the time to figure out who you really are and who you really want to become. You can't really nurture your zest without doing that period of reflection. So give yourself the time to learn who you are, who you want to become, and why, and take the time and be courageous to follow that path. Because it may not be straightforward. It may not be a straight line. Like a career and the best journeys are never like that. They go in left and rights and ups and downs. But just be brave to take the time, and then, anything's possible.
Thank you. I love that. I actually thought you were going to say focus, not focus, purpose, which is your whole vibe. So time is beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, purpose comes with time, right? I didn't find my purpose. I didn't find what I wanted to do without taking the time to figure out who I was.
But you went on a journey to find your voice, and now you're helping others unlock that too, which is awesome. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show. No worries.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Nurture Your Zest. You can find us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Nurture Your Zest. If you've liked today, please subscribe. You can also leave us a review if you're feeling extra kind. Today's podcast has been made available through the kind sponsorship of TL Multimedia and That Branding Company. We look forward to catching up with you again soon as you learn to nurture your zest.